Hey folks, a quick interruption and surprise. The High Tech Podcast is thrilled to announce that we've joined the Education Podcast Network, a community of podcasters just like us.
In a second, you're going to hear a new intro that we will now include in each of our episodes. These intros are from hosts across the network, so be sure to check them out and share the love with them.
Many thanks to Chris at EPN for welcoming us into the fold. Now, let's settle in for episode 50 of the High Tech Podcast.
Hi, I'm Chris Nessie from the House of EdTech Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Okay, what am I paying you for? But there's
to tell you to go find the answer and then give you feedback when you come back with an answer that's wrong. Notice in the story, Will's the hero. No,
I am hero man. And then I gave Will an F. Now, Ann Jeanette, on the other hand, she nailed it. A+ work.
What is up, High Tech people? It's another week, the High Tech Podcast. It's me, Josh. Hosts haven't changed. Will's here, I think. Hello, Will?
I'm here.
Wow, don't sound so depressed about recording.
It's a long week, man. It is only Tuesday.
It's been a long week, you know? It's fine. That happens. We've all had those moments, you know? Just remember, Will doesn't like you. No, I'm just joking. Welcome back, guys. Another week. Excited to talk about some more stuff, some more education things, technology stuff that we do, you know, super
that was
specific
eloquent
things. I know,
that was
right? Yeah, I don't know why people think I can't come up with eloquent phrases.
Golf clap for that one, my friend.
Exactly. Anyway, before we get into our normal spiel in the High Tech Podcast, just remember that we exist. We're online. We're real people with hearts and souls and social media accounts.
One of us, maybe.
One of us. So if you're not already, check us out on Twitter at High Tech Podcast. Make sure to follow us, subscribe. We'd love to talk to you on there. We post stuff. We'll post stuff is mainly what I should say. We'll post things. I retweet it, you know, and I do the things you ask me to do when you're doing like,
hey Josh,
actual
do
campaigns
this.
on social media, you know. So check us out though. It's great. You know, we love when you guys check us out on Twitter. We post some stuff. We'd love to post more questions and things as more people engage in there. So if you're listening to us, we want to know who you are, and Twitter is one of the great places to let us know. Other places you can connect with us. You can email us at inbox@hightechpod.us. That's our email. Feel free to throw some suggestions, ideas. If you have a topic you'd love for us to cover, we would love to hear it. And also, in classic fashion with our episodes, who knows how long this has been continuing by the time we record this episode? I don't know anymore because I'm lost. We're recording out of order sometimes.
Time is irrelevant.
Time is irrelevant, but we've been asking you to provide a picture to our email if you're listening to this episode so we can know that you've been listening to this episode. And fun fact, Will, I found out the person I'm co-teaching with right now found out that people weren't reading some of his feedback on papers, so he started putting in the feedback that if you've read this, I'll give you 5 extra credit points.
Oh, wow.
Like this, or he didn't do that, somebody else did.
Right.
And he started doing that. It wasn't in his feedback. It was in his introduction videos.
Okay.
At the end of the video, it would be like, if you saw this, comment on your paper and I'll give you, you know, whatever. And he said like 2 students out of the entire class commented the first time.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Anyway, so we're using the same techniques with you, just not extra credit. We're not you're not getting graded by us. And you know, we're not, I don't have money to give you. I'm sorry. So we have no other motivations. Maybe a chocolate sometime. But anyway, do an animal. And I got to think about the animal here for a second. I'm feeling.
Don't hurt yourself.
I'm feeling, Black Panther.
All right.
You know?
That's a Marvel character, but a panther is fine.
A Marvel character, but, you know, well, there are panthers that are black. I want a specific. Listen, sir, he got his name from something. Like, send me a picture. If you send me a picture of the Black Panther from the Marvel movies, that's acceptable too.
Yeah, that'll get you extra credit. A real panther doesn't matter. It's just for jokes. But if you send the Black Panther,
none of those other panthers, just a specific. No? Okay. Send that to inbox at hightechpod.us. Also, just a reminder, if you've been listening to us on your podcast platform, but you haven't found our website, we have a website, hightechpod.us. It's a great website. We post resource pages for every episode that we do, so we encourage you to go check that out, as we often have stuff of how to get started with the tools that we recommend during our episodes, and fun other little tidbits on that website. So go check it out, hightechpod.us. Okay.
Now that you're done talking, we should talk about our talking topic.
Talking about our talk.
I don't know what's happening.
That did not go well. So our topic for today is talk time. Who should be talking in the classroom? I think is really what we're getting at. And I'm saying I think because we're flying by the seat of our pants tonight, so we kind of just like picked a topic.
You're actually wearing pants? Oh wait,
I am.
Sorry.
And I think Will was the one who put this in our topic list, so I kind of have like a rough idea of what we're supposed to be talking about today. So. But like, who should be speaking in the classroom? And I would expand this into the online classroom as well, right? This is not just your physical classroom. We're high tech. We focus on both.
That's fair.
So I think the question, right, is who should be talking? What should talk time look like?
I want to. We can keep this pretty generic. I'm glad to touch like all sorts of different sides of this topic, but this comes to me from two areas. One, in my background is an English teacher. English is a second language. One of my first lessons in undergrad was, if you're doing an English classroom and the teacher is the one talking the most, your students aren't learning English. That was a really, I think, helpful challenge. But at the point being, if you want them to speak English, they have to speak English. Now, this most recently came back up for me when we had our conversation with Dave Nelson over at Equity Maps, when he was working. He has a product, of course, that assesses this, but he was talking with us about the fact that when you do an equity maps on a classroom conversation, you really get to see where the equation goes, right? Does the teacher talk 70% of the time? Do the kids get talking? What happens? And do some kids not talk at all? You don't necessarily know that kind of information when you're just teaching. You've started teaching this semester, right? Like, it's weird. You're up there. You're trying to pay attention to all those things, but it's not something you can just know. Like, okay, did John speak in the last 5 minutes? I don't know. I've been speaking, or I asked a question, or I showed a video. Like, who knows what John did? So this is a good question, I think, to address. Like, what are you doing in your classroom to monitor who is and isn't talking? What engagement practices do you have? Are you able to use something like equity maps? And what is your content area? Is it really relevant that your students be speaking? Could it be more relevant that your students should speak more? Some folks would say, if it's like an engineering class, hydraulics, I need to be the teacher speaking to the students about what hydraulics are. But do we just have enough time for them to ask a question? Do we barely have enough time? Do they ever talk? Do they do presentations? These are the 1,000 questions that roll in my head when it comes about the classroom experience and whether or not the students and the teacher are speaking or are talking in rounds, in time with each other.
Well, and I think if, to your point, Will, what you're talking about, just I've been starting doing some more actually active teaching right now. It's kind of team teaching with a professor who's been teaching the course longer than I have, and I'm kind of learning from him in the process while doing the class. But if I've noticed anything even in this process, it's I think really what it comes down to is when we have these conversations, I feel like it's everybody tries to perpetuate what they feel like is the thing that needs to happen. Okay, well, you need to have them talk more. You need to do this, or, more of this active learning principles, or more of and this is where lecture starts to get shot by people who don't like it. Right. So at the end of the day, I think it has to do with what you're learning is not you sit down in this classroom and they've just learned this topic. It's going to be a continual thing over the class. Right. And so I think it depends on what you're doing. For instance, what we're doing in our situation, we're trying to teach them how to interpret stuff. And so there's classes that are more lecture focused where we're explaining the process more, and then several classes that are practicing that process. And it's a lot more group work, and it's a lot more them breaking out to stuff and us coming back together and reviewing what they did, and then having a larger assignment that they go out and they do, and they practice it and get more one-on-one feedback, right? So like it's a process, and so it has to be mixed together. It shouldn't just, I think, all be lecture.
Right.
But there are also times where it shouldn't just literally always be group work. I've been a part of classes where it was all group work, and it was like, I'm not sure I'm actually learning anything new. I think I'm just like, is this person supposed to only be teaching me? We're both learning. Why is the person that's the teacher never
I'm
talking?
blind.
Like, what?
They're blind. Why are we leading each other?
Why are we leading each other, right? So I feel like it's a mixture of those things.
Yeah.
But the point that I think you're bringing up is, are you engaging practices that are making sure it's a diverse set of things? Or are
you paying attention?
Are you paying attention? Are you carefully evaluating, not to like get students in trouble, but just being careful to pay attention, like, are so-and-so talking? Is this person talking? Are you engaging activities that encourage multiple people to talk, not just whoever decides to yell out the first thing, right? So like those are, and we've talked about some of this stuff before. I think like activities that can help with that is one, just when you ask questions, not just like saying, does anybody have questions, and then letting 4 people respond and disappearing, but like actually having intentional ways to collect maybe those questions ahead of time, to engage with, have them start to think through that stuff in between classes. Like there's a lot of different ways I think you can end up doing this. I'm being a little vague about it, but like our entry ticket stuff, like that we've talked about before, have them come in with questions, or exit tickets, questions that they've got going on about that topic, so you can engage that next class and actually call on the person who gave the question, right? Those are some techniques I've seen happen in those areas.
Yeah, well, and
I don't,
to the point of like things you can do. I'm 100% with your point that we should try different things, and maybe even in the same course, different classes will have different, tenors or paces to them, right? But that is banking on the fact that you've taken time to think through and identify the issue. Some classes, like a language acquisition class, if the teacher talks the majority of the time, all you might be teaching those students then is vocabulary. You're not teaching them how to speak, how to become fluent. So there's the issue if they need fluency. But let's be honest. What if you're learning ancient Hebrew, ancient Greek? You're learning a language for maybe a more academic purpose. There isn't a problem then with the teacher having more talk time to demonstrate vocabulary, to demonstrate how the old language works, etc. But in a fluency context, I want them to speak the language. That is a big problem. The students need time to speak if they're going to learn to speak.
I think the point of what we're just trying to get at, because we're just jumping around in that area, is like, it needs to be, I think it's not that the student should only be talking and the instructor should only be talking, or the student should be talking way more than the instructor should be talking. I think it depends on, you need to intentionally identify what are the, this always comes back to this, what are the goals for what you're trying to learn in that course? What a surprise. And then identify what are some of the best ways people can learn that process, right? And so, and then on top of that, try to find ways to actively encourage different types of discussion and engagement in class, so that you can make sure you're getting past some of those things. Even if it was he's only noticing the people in the front in your example. Okay, how do we get around that? Okay, well, maybe we start to notice that. Maybe I start to walk around the class a little bit more when I'm asking questions, right? Instead of just being up in the front. Or I take their questions first, right? So maybe for the female students who are feeling uncomfortable, I actively try to make sure I have some type of way for them to write down their questions. So maybe I pull up a tool like Answer Garden, or one of the tools that we've done where students could type in their questions, right? And they're all required to drop in a question, and then you can review those questions afterwards, right? So like there's ways to get around that. And just identifying, I think, those elements. There's a lot of different solutions and techniques that you can do in the midst of that. Yeah, and sometimes it's tough. I get it. Sometimes you're in the classroom. Like, I've been noticing this more as I'm doing this. Like, you're in the classroom, you didn't plan to ask for questions, right? So, like, you're just like, I didn't have a solution ahead of time. I was just trying to deal with it, right? So, like, I was just like,
So what do you all think of this? I don't know what I think of it.
I don't know. But, like, in those cases, sometimes it's good to have those things on the fly, right? So maybe I'll have note cards with me just in case, decide when I ask questions. I'm gonna have some note cards. Let's get some low techie tech and just like hand out some note cards and be like, hey, write down a question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take these. We're gonna look over them and see what questions people have. Right. Things like that I think are important. And then also just engaging. Like I've been seeing this too. When you do like group work and stuff like that, make sure you're walking around and actually asking people how they're doing in the groups. And even practically ask. I'm learning this myself. Practically asking like, hey, have you found this piece, or like, have you, whatever they're trying to do, like asking them not just how are you doing, but like specifically asking them to kind of talk about something they're specifically working through as a group. So I feel like there's a lot of different ways. Now, Will, I want to pose a question here real quick. Online, what does this look like online? Right? So we're really focusing on the classroom, right? Because I do think there's a certain difficulty, but the online has a different difficulty. If I had to, I'm just going to drop this out here, right? If I had to say what I think is the harder difficulty in online, it's not the student having the chance to talk. It's the instructor.
Yep.
Now, I think that's not the same across all the boards. Some of these self-paced courses, it's like, okay, it's this, they have nobody to talk to. But like in general, I think in education, we've tried to create ways for people to talk to each other. Yeah. Like discussions are a staple in online courses, right? So we have some kind of place for that. Would you agree? I feel like I saw you doing a head nod with that.
I think that when you brought that up, like I very immediately just went, oh my gosh, there's a generalization. There are two generalizations that are the inverse of one another. We kind of expect in a classroom that the teacher's going to talk a lot and the students aren't going to get a chance to talk. And the inverse, I think, is true of an online class. And these are generalizations, but like in an online class, all you're going to see is the students doing something and the teacher might get a chance to like give some feedback, right? Like to me, it's ironic that in the different media or the different contexts, the roles would be switched. And my reason for this whole topic and my hope that folks get out of this conversation today is that it needs better balance, both sides. You know, in the classroom, we want the students talking more, asking questions, even presenting their own thoughts. It doesn't just have to be asking questions. The students could bring information, novel information.
Giving the opportunities to pull stuff together and actually create something and do some of the teaching themselves, right? You learn better when you teach. I can attest to that. So like, give them opportunities to do that.
I know questions that I've asked that have resulted in classroom knowledge being generated, questions I've asked as a student because the teacher didn't have the answer. And I had a couple that challenged me. Yeah, why don't you go find the answer? It's like, okay, what am I paying you for? But there's
to tell you to go find the answer and then give you feedback when you come back with an answer that's wrong.
But no, like that starts the cycle of conversation, the cycle of feedback. I think that's a positive thing, and it worked well for me. But now in the online space, like something that I've been advocating for years, Justin and I have done some work on this and presentations and stuff. Online instructor presence is critical to student success in an online course.
100%.
And yet the discussions are so empty of faculty.
Like
9 out of 10 times, maybe even more than that. I think.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, like I think that's absolutely true. I mean, and you called it what I was gonna call it out for, which is what we often refer to this as instructor presence. Like it is harder for instructors to come across as present in an online class. Right. And so this is why I think sometimes it feels the reverse in online. Now I will say this. I think I don't know about you, but I've done a handful of grading for discussions for several years. I haven't done it for a little while, but I was doing it for a good bit. And I think what I noticed let's talk about discussions here first, right? So like this becomes one of the main places we see conversation happening in the classroom. I still would argue it's not a replacement for person-to-person contact like everybody thinks it is. But let's put aside that thing. We'll have a whole other series.
We have episodes on that. There will be more episodes on that.
There will be more. It's coming. Okay, so but for right now, let's put that aside. I think one of the problems I notice with instructors is, guys, when you're in a classroom and you're talking, you engage as the conversation is going. In a discussion, I see instructors stay like peace out until like the discussion's done. And then they're coming in and they're like posting. And I think because of that, there's like a fear that, well, if I give too much, I'm like giving answers away. And it's like, well, like that's what discussions are. Like you're talking. Like as you see students posting, you're helping yourself workload wise, and you're helping the discussion by going in and giving input. Giving feedback, even posting yourself to like engage. Notice if you see themes happening in the discussions, like are multiple students posting the same issue, or are they Like, and don't wait till the end. Like, you can post into stuff. And I know there's like a careful line. You don't want to, if everybody's saying the same issue, you know, you don't want to be like, help out the other ones later, but just don't take off points for it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just get, like, so I think that's maybe my input. I think I started to discover like progressive feedback, at least on the discussion side, was better. Like, it was helping generate more discussion and helping students connect ideas with each other. Like, Tom says this, but, you know, I'm going to use Sally says this over here, and these two ideas kind of connect. I might go into Sally's discussion and be like, hey, did you read, I don't even remember who I called the first one. Tom. Did you read Tom's post? Check out his post and think about responding to his, because your two ideas tie together. Yeah. Like, now all of a sudden you're connecting to students, and usually we have something in a discussion that tells them they have to respond to so many people, right? So now you're helping them by seeing people maybe they benefit more by responding to.
I think that's
to engage in a topic.
I think that's one of the stronger strategies that online instructors can employ quickly, easily. Like, one of the things that a lot of folks balked at, you know, would struggle with when we would advocate for better online instructor presence was like, how am I supposed to keep up? You know, if I've got 35 students, if I've got 3 sections of 35 students, how am I supposed to post and everything? You're not superhuman. I get it. You have other job, you know, other classes. I get it. But if your opportunity there is not to reply to every single student, because you would never do that in the classroom. You would never give the full discursive 3-paragraph response to every student who asks a question in the classroom, right? But if you can do these things like connecting other students to help each other, if you can pose extension questions, there's so many smaller, if you will, easier things for you to do that can continue the conversation and show that you're there without adding 30 hours of work to your week.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's easy. Like,
sometimes in response, right? So you may want to like say something to the whole discussion that's going on that week. And I get it. Like, our tools, I'll criticize our LMSs. Again, we've talked about this. I don't think they do discussions well. They were basically like, here's Facebook chat. Let me put that in here. But like, without other features.
Not even
Facebook
as good.
Chat has. Right? So like,
I can't put GIFs.
Canvas, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Fix it. Like, there's like, so, but one of the solutions I think is employed, right, is like, okay, well, maybe I see that they're all posting about one of these issues, and I want to make it kind of clear. I want to kind of give like maybe some questions for them to keep thinking through, right? Instead of posting it as a post in the discussion, you could go in and post an announcement or something with a video of you talking about it, with a link to the discussion to say, hey, I noticed this is happening in the discussion. Have you guys given thought? You know, like, there's ways to basically kind of, I think you're there to facilitate better discussion.
Yeah.
When it comes to that type of stuff. And that's one of the ways to provide, I think, presence, at least from a discussion method.
I had a faculty member in my grad classes who did all discourse through Slack. So it was instant messaging. There were group channels and DMs and like class-wide channels. And so every week your conversation was based on a group of about 3 to 5 people. It really depended. And a couple people left classes. You know, that stuff happens. But every week he would watch the chats. You'd know he would be in those group chats, and he might like put a little extension in, or, oh, great idea, Joe. Or he even just like liked certain posts. You know, like a Slack, you can react with certain emoji and stuff. But
Can't
then
just listen to that.
But then, right at the end of the week, he would, well, maybe not at the end of the week, like whatever. Week to week, he would post a video then, and in it he would acknowledge some of the top content. So not always like the best content, but like throughout the week, he would engage or salt and pepper in some responses into the Slack conversations themselves. But then at the end of the week, he would do videos like, hey, so this past week, like Will had a really great idea about this. If you've been really wrestling with this idea about this theory, you know, check out what he put in there in that thread, and definitely see his resources. I love the article from Dr. So-and-so. It's one of my favorite, you know, like that.
Notice in the story, Will's the hero. No,
I am hero man. You know, and then I gave Will an F. Now, Ann Jeanette, on the other hand, she nailed it. A+ work. Yeah, like, I don't see why it matters. It's all hypothetical land. It's my dream world as I'm trying to
fine. It all happens.
Think on the spot. But that was an example where, like, what did he have to do? He monitored the chats. He watched them happen. He hit thumbs up a couple times. He asked a question once or twice, and then once a week, he would do a little, like, if you're thinking about this idea, extend it here. If you want this idea, check out this person. Josh and Sam had a really great conversation. Like, that's easy.
Yeah.
That took and his videos were always less than 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
So it's not hard.
And it's motivating. Like in a classroom, if we're being honest, like when people are talking and an instructor does some of that kind of on the fly, just as you naturally do, it's a motivator for students to keep engaging in that way.
Yep.
And when they post these discussions and they get, I'm sorry, if you respond to every student, your response to every student is like, good job and great work. And like, that's not motivating, you know, like, and I get it. Like sometimes you just have to do some of that and you're running through stuff. So anyway,
well, and
I think like that's one way that you can kind of engage in
with
that.
your point about motivation. Let's be honest about psychology here, folks. People like a good job. They do like that affirmation, but it needs to be more than good job. Like,
yeah.
Now I'm self-conscious. I see you for what you did, in this way. Good job. Not just good job, right? But like, you made a point about blah 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 theory or this reference or this resource. Like,
you're actively referencing something that they did do a good job.
I
with,
see
right?
you.
It's not just enough to say a good job.
Hear
I
you.
see what you did.
Yeah. And that's
it's
psychology, folks. We all like to be seen. We all like to be praised. Yeah. And so you want to take advantage of that. We're all weak humans. We can't get away from it. So
and it's not about just like making people feel good. It's that motivation encourages them to dig in and learn more, right? And you don't just say good job if they did not do a good job. Don't say good job, right? But like if you're going to give critical feedback, actually point to something that's critical. It's simple. Whatever you're going to say, good job, bad job, point to the thing that was good or bad, right? Like that's as simple as that. So anyway, I think there's that. And then I think one last reference I'll give before we, I think, move on is just, it's not all about the discussions all the time too. It's giving that same type of stuff as good feedback in the papers and the activities that they're working on, and being active. Like I always encourage instructors in online courses, like post a video or an announcement each week at the beginning of the week, right? Like, and be in there, help them, guide them towards, if they have a lot of reading to do or a lot of activities, maybe you want to point them to a few things they want to pay careful attention to this week. Post an announcement or a video to help bring attention to that as the instructor. It's going to make them feel like you're there, you're engaged, you know what's happening during the week, and then you're also guiding them, facilitating them along the way. And so in those conversations, and I think those are the places we fit some of that in, because it's, to your point, well, it's in the online course that the student can kind of feel like they're the only ones doing something sometimes.
Yeah.
Now it's a whole other conversation, I think, about how we make sure students feel like each other are talking. But we're running into time.
Well,
so I feel like that's
I want to do my community college public speaking professor proud here by ending this conversation with a call to action. If you are an instructor in the traditional classroom, my challenge to you is to do a week's worth of classes. If you're a Monday to Wednesday, Friday, or just 3-hour class, whatever it is, and take a little notepad with you, a piece of paper, and try to some scheme, right? However you feel is most effective, take note of how often who talks. Whether you just do check marks every time somebody changes. Like, you could just do that. That'd be a simple system. On a piece of paper, when you start talking, make a little like check. And when someone else talks, check. And when you talk, check. And even just count how many times the talk stick, if you will, changes hands. Just do a count. That's a very simple thing to help you reflect on who's speaking in your classroom. The core for online instructors, then, my challenge is to you: go finish a regular week, or go look back on a class you've taught in the past. Go through the week's worth of materials and see where you did show up. Check how many times you showed up, and if it was none or very few, my challenge, my encouragement is find a place where you can show up next time. I think that's a really easy way to be aware of our talk time and start to use it actively with no cost, no tool, no add-ons, just good old talk time.
And if you like that, then go find equity maps. No, I'm just
exactly. Bing, bing, bing. That's episodes.
Bing, bing, bing. That's a different episode. Anyway, I like that. Take that call of action. Do some of those check marks. I'll listen to you. Well, I'll go I'll grab a notepad.
Right,
and do some of that.
You could do it to your co-teacher when he's speaking.
Yeah,
you can just take note of what
I'm
he
leading
does.
the next session, but I'll do the session after.
There you go.
Anyway, so
you're just trying to rush me along here, aren't you?
I know. I'm trying to move us quickly because we just we're in such a rush to get to our app, you
Yep.
know?
Yep, aren't we?
To get, yeah, it's the transition's dying at Rush. I got nothing else. Neil Peart would be unhappy with me. Don't know who that is, do you?
No.
No. Okay, it's the drummer for Rush. It's a band.
Oh, well
done.
I hope any music. You know what? If my brother-in-law listens to this episode, he will have gotten that joke. I bet
he will do it. Okay,
Absolutely.
Cool. Oh, that's nice. Anyway, Will, tell us about the app this week that we were in a rush to get to.
Our app du jour is Adobe Rush. Adobe Rush is a, alongside your soup.
Sorry, that was such a Will way to introduce an app.
Hey, this is my podcast, okay? I have carte blanche. I'm just saying. Adobe Rush is a audio video editing tool. It's primarily meant to do video, right? So it's not like you could make a podcast in it. It's not built for that. You probably could, but it's meant to be the trimmed down version of Adobe Premiere Pro. Adobe Premiere Pro is an industry-leading video editing tool. I mean, commercials, movies, tons of things are actually made that you see all the time in Adobe Premiere Pro. There's other ones, Adobe Premiere Pro, other ones as well, but Adobe Premiere Rush, or Adobe Rush, is an app-based platform. It's actually designed for the iPad. It's designed for the mobile experience. And so it's really trimmed down. It's very simple to use. You drag and drop things. You can to do transitions and stuff like that. It's very easy to pull them onto your timeline and put clips next to each other. I've done a lot of video editing. I've been doing video editing my entire career. I don't know how I ended up doing it. I have no background in it, right? But when somebody wants a lecture video made and you're the only guy available, you make a lecture video. It's the easiest one I've used. And so when I was an instructional designer at my last institution, I actually supported a number of classrooms that used Adobe Rush with the students so that the students could participate in creating digital stories, creating video copy content for promotion, marketing, stuff like that. I knew one of the actually two of the classes definitely did it from a technical standpoint, but one was a marketing class, one was a technical writing class, and they both ended up creating a video because they wanted to make sure that they could do their very professional writing, their very front-facing marketing approach with video media as well as written media. So it's one of those tools that for a writing class, right, I didn't have to come in and train them for 3 weeks on how to use Adobe Premiere Pro, a very intense software. I came in for 30 minutes and showed them this app, and they were all already able to start right up after I was done. It's that easy, which is awesome because Adobe's products are usually pretty intense, pretty laborious. But
No.
This one, and the idea might even be for folks with iPads, literally just go out in the field, quote unquote, wherever you're going, record stuff with the iPad and edit it right there on the go. It's
that's why I think it would work great for student stuff, right? So I'll be upfront. I have not used Adobe Rush. I've used Adobe Tools to do stuff, right? Like in Premiere, and as I've documented in this podcast before, if I could sit down with Adobe, I would basically say, did you just ignore user experience when making things, or was that an active choice?
I don't think user experience was designed, was a thing when they made the product.
I think it was a foreign concept, and they've just refused to bring it in. But looking at Rush, it looks like it's pretty user friendly. But the point I was getting at about the app experience is that for students it works really well because they can just record their video and edit it on the fly while they're doing it, right? So if they're going in and you want to record an interview with somebody, or you want them to record some footage or tell a digital story like we've talked about before in digital storytelling, and I think we talked about an Adobe tool, Spark, when we talked about digital storytelling, right? So it's a good tool for that, and I think Rush is useful. Now, it's a freemium tool, right, Will? So there's a free starter thing. It gives you basically unlimited exporting, so you can create videos and export out as many as you want. Your students could easy editing, animated titles, soundtracks, things like that.
It's really important though you point out the unlimited exports thing. I've used tons of free ones too that throw a watermark over the entire video, or you can only export 2 videos. So the big limitation on this app as a free tool is there is not unlimited cloud storage. There is no like cloud storage between devices. Like if you pay up, you can pretty much record a video on your iPad, start editing it on your iPad, and then go work on your desktop too. You need to pay for that feature. But seriously, like this is the digital age here. If you record it on your iPad and you want to do the work on your computer, just throw it in your Google Drive, your Dropbox, whatever you've got. You've got something. If you have to, a USB stick. Like I know they're still out there. Some folks have them.
They exist. I've got one mailed to me recently.
Did somebody hate you? Like what?
Yeah, it's a thing. It's fine.
Quick tangent. We were talking very recently, my wife and I, about wanting to play Skyrim again but now on my computer. And I was like, oh, don't you have a disc for that? She's like, yeah, I got that as a physical disc game years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, let's play that. Cool. And then she looks at me, she looks at my computer, she looks at me, she looks at my computer, she looks at me, and she goes, your computer doesn't have a disk drive. And I looked at her and I was like, you're right. I've had this computer for a year and a half and I've never once realized it does not have a disk drive. I think there's a future where we don't have USB drives either.
Yeah, that'll eventually go away, I guess. But
my
anyway,
quick anecdote aside.
Quick anecdote. I'm in no rush for that to happen. Anyway. I mean, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything like crazy special to say about Adobe Rush. It's a solid video editing tool if you're looking for one to work with your students or you want to do some video editing on your own, and app based. So I think it's worth checking out. Right. There's several tools we've recommended over the time for video and work like that. But one thing I will say about Adobe, as much as I bust on them, they are the leading people in video editing areas, and so a lot of times their tools come with cool stuff like the animated titles. Effects, things that like your students can have fun putting into their videos or you could have fun putting into your videos, and so I'd be willing to check it out and try it in hopes that I find a better experience.
The last downside, I think it's a fantastic app. It works on your computer. I've used it on my computer. It works really well on an iPad because you got a bigger screen. iPads are generally a nice size. It is not supported on Android. And as an Android user, that hurts a little bit to say, but that's probably the biggest limitation for classroom delivery. Like if you've got students who only have Android devices,
that's true.
They're going to have to use it on a PC or something, or use like a school device to use the app. Nothing's perfect. This is just really good.
True. Nothing's perfect. But we've recommended iPad only apps before. Equity Maps,
right.
Great tool. They're working on trying to not be iPad only.
Like Equity Maps made a cameo this episode or something.
Yeah, I know. It's like they kind of popped in. I hope Dave listens to this sometime.
I'll make sure to ping him.
Yeah, ping him and let him know. Anyway, so Adobe Rush, go check it out. Just Google Adobe Rush. We'll throw the links in the episode page. Yep. It's a good time.
Yep, Josh is always on that. Thank you, my dear friend. That's it for this week. We've rushed right out of time. Next episode. Yeah, right?
I need more sounds.
Next step, we need any sounds that aren't our mouths.
Any sound effects, yeah.
Next episode, we're going to get into a heavy conversation with the idea of digging into what is cognitive load. We've talked about it before. It's come up from time to time. It's a big theory in instructional design. It's a big theory in education. But we want to dig into some of the details so that you can have an idea of what that means. Then we're going to get into some trouble with a fun app called Otter. I love when, app names are just like silly, weird, or whatever, but just Otter, the animal.
The surprise is going to be it's not about an app. We're actually just interviewing an otter. Like we have an otter in the podcast. We're like, Otter, what do you think about education?
Oh my God.
It doesn't say anything because it's an otter.
Just eats its carrot and looks at you funny.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want from me?
Until then, as always, do please reach out to us on Twitter, High Tech Podcast. Love to engage with you there. Send us your image of the week, of course, at inbox@hightechpod.us. If you don't remember what that was, like me, go back to the beginning of the episode. And, of course, hit the website. A Black Panther, very specifically.
Black Panther, sorry.
Head to our website to find all the resources for all of our episodes, our past episodes. Please do share that with folks. We want this to be helpful for you and for your fellow teachers. Until next time, please continue to join us as we look into what it takes to harness technology in the physical and digital classroom. See ya.
See ya.